You've hit play on the Screen Companion, a show about making your viewing time count. We're talking about Ingrid Bergman films, specifically Intermezzo from 1939, The Bells of St. Mary's from 1945, as well as an honorable mention that we'll get into. Beginning with Intermezzo, it tells the story of Holger Brandt, a professional Swedish violinist spending his downtime at home with his wife, son, and daughter, Anne-Marie. After entering an affair with Anne-Marie's young piano teacher, Anita Hoffman, he takes her touring as an international musical duo. But with the age gap, opportunities pulling them in different directions, and Holger's family ties, will the romance last, or will it pass as a fling that landed between acts of their lives?
Did you write that yourself?
Sure did. John, how would you rate the central relationship between Holger and Anita?
I thought it was very, I don't want to say realistic, because of the age gap. Yeah, it was realistic.
It could certainly happen.
Yeah, it could certainly happen.
It's not science fiction.
Although a laser beam or two wouldn't have hurt this movie, I think.
That's true. You would have loved it if Godzilla showed up.
Oh my god, it'd been awesome.
Please, don't laugh at me if I tell you something.
Why should I laugh?
You see, ever since I first began to care about music, it seems strange.
What does?
I had only one idea. For years I saved every penny I could to be able to hear you whenever you played.
Did you? How nice of you to tell me that.
Yeah, nice of me. Think of my being able to tell it to you. That's what I can't get over. Here I am talking to you as if you were an old friend.
Well, I'm a friend anyway.
But only a little while ago I looked at you from such a distance, and now you don't know how fantastic it seems to me to be here.
Waiter, bring us some champagne.
Champagne?
Yeah, champagne is what we need. A couple of glasses of champagne and two strangers have a rich and happy past.
I think both characters come off as good people in the beginning, so when they enter into the affair, I don't buy that their attraction is strong enough to fly in the face of decency.
I support that.
What do you think of Bergman's acting?
She did a good job. This one specifically, I think she does a lot of heavy lifting with her eyes. There's a scene later in the movie, I think, where one of the characters suggests to her that she break it off with Holger. And it could be with the lighting, too. She just gives him this death stare of, oh yeah. Yeah, she's feeling it.
I can imagine you going back in time and you're the director of the movie. Looking through the eyepiece. Oh yeah, she's feeling it right now.
She's got it. Oh yeah.
Check the gate, we got it.
You need a minute? No, we're good.
I think she overreacted in parts, even for an old black and white. But when she does, I think it's because she's hamstrung by the script. Because the only way to do some of the dialogue in the movie is to ham it up.
It's definitely a melodrama. I can't think of anything off my head, but there's definitely more melodramatic 30s and 40s films out there.
So actress Isabella Rossellini said this about her mother in a 2022 People magazine interview. The producer, David O. Selznick, said to her, "Okay, now we have to make you more sophisticated. We're going to change your eyebrows and do this and that." And Mama said, "Absolutely not. I have a big career in Sweden. I've done 11 films. I'm married and have a daughter. I'm already known, and I'm not going to change myself." Now that's funny because this 1939 version of Intermezzo is a Hollywood remake of an earlier 1936 movie of the same name that was made in Sweden. I was curious, and both movies are relatively short, so I watched both of them. And I did notice that Bergman's eyebrows in the original, she looks like a chola. She's got very thin eyebrows. And because of that reason, and I think her hair's shorter too, but I think she looks better in the American version.
Is that just because of the American sentiment of it? I'm looking at a screenshot right now of her quote-unquote chola eyebrows.
You see it.
I didn't think I'd get into a discussion today about sexy eyebrows and which one's preferred.
Well, I think we do need to get into it as a public service announcement. I wish ladies wouldn't do so much to their eyebrows.
Natural eyebrows, I think, are where it's at. The chola, it's too produced.
When they draw it in, or edging it in, it's so artificial and weird.
Too many things to go wrong. You can accidentally look shocked permanently.
Life is very shocking. How appropriate.
Are you surprised? Did you just screw up your eyebrows?
Do you think they do enough to keep the affair likable or interesting?
No, I don't think they do. It's just straight into a fair, and then they're off to Europe on vacation.
Agreed. There's a whirlwind quality to the beats of their relationship. It makes them come off as insensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the film completely glosses over the immediate days after they hook up. We don't even see them kiss for the first time, do we?
No, I don't think we do. And that just might be the censorship of the time and not the storytelling. Do they kiss in the original version?
I want to say they kiss in the American version too, but that's once Holger leaves his family and the pair of them are gallivanting around the world.
On a boat? Off to, Venice or something?
Or Germany, I think. I guess it's okay to get kissy, but they don't want to show somebody philandering.
Kisses are good. Don't cheat on your wife.
It skips ahead what must be weeks or months later from when they get together.
Yeah, because they go on a tour, right? And then it skips to them. They're on vacation, doing nothing. Living the dream, I guess. Living the Austrian dream. Maybe that's a different thing. Maybe that's a whole different thing we shouldn't talk about.
What was the Austrian dream in 1939?
Gee, I don't know. Up until then, the only famous Austrian had been shipped to Germany.
Yeah, how similar was it to the German dream? Come to think of it, I don't know if we saw any Jews in this movie, or black people, or gays. Huh.
I'm pretty sure we saw a few gays. Definitely no black people.
That would have gone a long way to foment audience sympathy, to see the conflict of them crossing this line and how they negotiate the emotions. Instead, they're deep into it before Anita has her crisis of conscience in that one scene and thinks about leaving town without Holger.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going, why did it take you so long for your guilt to spill over?
Because the sex went bad.
Wouldn't a scene where she's giving Anne-Marie a lesson, torn up inside that she's betraying her student, wouldn't that have been a great drama flex?
Yeah, it would have been much better drama flex than having some random child be a stand-in for her in the other location.
Oh boy, did it hit you the same way that when we're introduced to that little girl that I guess lives at the hotel or on a farm nearby, when she's introduced and she's in Holger's room, I'm thinking, well, what's the relationship here?
Yeah, she's just hanging out. The point of that scene was established that they were going to have a musical relationship. But before that, yeah, she was just hanging out.
And that she was a stand-in for Holger's daughter that he was missing back home. But I think there could have been a better way to set that up.
Yeah, I think it would have been more comfortable if you just kidnapped her.
There's some weird shorthand in this movie.
Yes.
Tell us your favorite guests and what material you'd like us to cover next by emailing thescreencompanion@gmail.com, visit the Facebook group, or leave comments on YouTube. Support the podcast by subscribing and go to Amazon for the host's second novel, Self-Recognition, a futuristic detective story, available in both print and Kindle. Thank you to everyone stateside and around the world for listening. What do you think feels especially antiquated about the filmmaking, good or bad?
A lot of the editing, this has come up in every one of the movies. To go to a new scene, it's always crossfades into the next scene. That's how you know the next scene starts. Everything in the scene is a hard cut. And the wide shots, and again, all of them, the wide shots always felt like paintings. And there's definitely a scene in there where one of the characters says something very casually racist about a Chinese man.
Oh, yeah.
One of the people at Holger's house party is talking about them traveling, because I don't think it was his other pianist, right? It wasn't Thomas, it was some other random guy talking about traveling with him?
It was a guy who the family called Uncle Charlie. He was Holger's impresario, his producer.
Okay, I don't know anything about music. Or whatever word you just said. He's telling a story about them traveling. They stop in China, and he mentions an individual from China, and he just says a string of random racist words.
Come on, say it.
I didn't write them down, and they're not in my head. It was like, it sounds like you know it. I'm going to force you to say it.
Chew, ching, chang, chip, chop.
Oh, God.
So what does Uncle Charlie call him?
Chew, ching, chang, chip, chop?
Yeah. What purpose do you think that served?
There was no purpose. That had to be just like, I bet it wasn't even in the script. He was just ad-libbing. Uncle Charlie's going to throw in some racism. We got to spice this flick up.
And the politics of the day, the director was like, perfect, keep that in.
That's so weird. 1939, and he's going after China.
As the audience, we're supposed to think Uncle Charlie is embellishing that story, right?
I could totally see it. It's a real-life situation. He also forgot the guy's name and made that up on the spot.
Can you imagine the real story is that he went to a Chinese restaurant and met a guy named Gary Chan?
Yeah.
Would you stop introducing me as Chu Ching Chang Chip Chop, you racist Swede written by an American?
I'm Gary. I'm from Hong Kong.
No, he's Gary from around the block. He loves Swedish meatballs.
He doesn't even know any Mandarin.
That was so jarring, I had to laugh because it just came out of nowhere and then it disappeared immediately. You know, it never comes up again.
As fast as it showed up, it flew off into the ether.
Maybe that was one of the requirements of cinema back then, is that you had to include something racist. Do we meet our racist quota? No, sir. Damn it, get that in the scene right now.
Somebody hire Mickey Rooney to be a Chinaman.
I will not get into a row with the MPAA over this cut.
We cannot get in trouble. We don't have anyone in blackface, so we gotta say something racist about the Chinese.
Oh, boy. What I noticed that felt pretty antiquated is the way Holger gets off so lightly considering he ignored his family for a fling.
Yeah, he did get off lightly.
Everybody forgave him not long after he returned home. What an incredibly facile conclusion. It makes cheating look noble. Like the movie saying, you gotta follow your heart, even if you screw over your wife and kids. What can you do?
His hands are tied here. Because it wasn't just, he just showed up out of the blue and said, forgive me. He showed up with his half-dead daughter in his hands.
And he showed up like a year later.
Marguerite hadn't seen him in forever. And the first thing he does is walk through the door with the dying daughter. Be like, hey, I found this.
Considering the way he left, a part of me thought the mother would have seen him carrying in the little girl and said, oh my god, you bastard, you killed her, you scumbag.
Trying to finish us off.
They have 2 children, but the only child he seems to care anything about is his little girl. There's a son, too.
Oh my god, the son was the favorite part of the movie. That son easily could have been played by Danny DeVito doing a Brooklyn accent. Just come home and be like, oh, Mom, I'm going to go play football now. Ugh, go watch the movies. Little Brooklyn boy, man.
And how old do you think that kid was? Do you think he was high middle school age?
Yeah, So he was the oldest child.
So, spoiler alert, the original Swedish version is superior to the American version, unfortunately. And something that it does with its extra 20 minutes of runtime, because the American version is so short, it's just over 70 minutes, they actually give the son more scenes, and in the original, he looks like he's a junior or senior in high school. Interesting, because he pushes back more on his old man.
That does sound superior, because in this, he's, oh, hey, Pa. Did he even get a reaction out of his son when he came back after the year? Oh, hey, you're back. Okay, I'm gonna go smoke some cigars.
Eric, talk to me.
Why did you come back at all? We don't need you anymore.
Eric, listen to me, please. You know, when we're young, we expect the people we love to behave like gods. Most of all, I suppose, our fathers. And then, sadly, as we grow older, we realize we're none of us gods. We're all human. Tragically human. And that we all of us make mistakes right up to the end of our lives. You may understand this one day. And when you do, you may also understand what it is to forgive. Perhaps even your father.
Besides Ingrid Bergman, who was your favorite performance?
I think I brought up the boy because he was ridiculous.
But that doesn't really sound like a compliment.
No, it wasn't. It was so bad he was good. His other pianist, Thomas, there, I thought was pretty good. He had a lot of weight to the story. I don't want to give Holger a lot of credit because, we talked about it's okay that he was a philandering asshole. So I'm going to give it to Thomas.
You would have liked the Swedish version more because there's more with Thomas, and they fill out his role as Anita's instructor a lot more in the original. I think in this American version, Thomas comes off unearned in his level of familiarity with the family and what they're doing.
He's at the dinner. He's not even telling a story, I think, at the beginning, because he's letting racist McGee have all that spotlight. Cut to halfway through the movie, having done nothing, he's giving advice on everyone's relationships, and they're listening to him with much weight.
It feels a lot more like they're listening to him because, well, that's just the part he's going to play in the drama.
That's his part in the play. He hasn't earned it.
And similarly, but I think to a more successful degree, I like the daughter, Anne-Marie, for the part she played in the story. She needed to be endearing to the audience, and she did that. A little Shirley Temple vibe, maybe.
My wife might have said she looked like Shirley Temple.
So what's your favorite scene?
In the hotel room when Thomas is telling Anita that Holger misses his daughter and she needs to back off. There's that great shot of her trying to kill Thomas with her eyes, and it's so well lit. Ingrid was really getting it.
Yep, going back to your old Hollywood director speak. That girl's going places. Anne-Marie's birthday party sticks out because of the way Holger and Anita develop that chemistry and the way it gets set up really well. Anne-Marie and her father, they play for the party guests, and then he plays with Anita. They're a couple of high-level musicians, and their duet communicates a lot about shared interest and being simpatico. But as good as that moment is, it was only pouring the foundation of their affair. They got together, like we've been saying, way too quickly. I still needed the walls and the roof on that love house before they moved in. But when they're playing together at the party, that's a nice beginning of things. But I just wish they had done more with that to set up why they like each other so badly.
Did they have more time in the Swedish version?
Actually, they don't put much more effort into it, except I guess they don't need the time because Ingrid Bergman plays it differently in the original. She's more passionate and I think in the American one, when she first sees Holger, Anita is a little shy, but you can see some attraction there. In the Swedish version, Bergman plays it where she's giving him sex eyes immediately. She wants that D.
Yeah, her eyes do a lot of heavy lifting.
Which is still a little off-putting. At least if she's going at it with that much energy, then I almost don't need more of an explanation because we can just see it on her face that she really wants him. Maybe that's because she was a few years younger in the original, so they played it that way. I imagine you have a list of criticisms.
How did you know?
Let's do your top 3.
The relationship definitely moved too fast for my taste. Even though a little kid got hit by a car, it was too happy of an ending for a guy who just ran off with a woman. They don't see him for a year, and he comes home with a half-dead kid, and the mother's like, I think you're home. You could stay with us.
How much better would it have been if the little girl had died?
Wow.
He's got to pay for his sins somehow.
Exactly, yeah. The doctor came out and was like, she's gonna live. Your wife wants you back.
And why would you stop on the opposite curb to the school?
Right? Just to creep. He's there to creep. He didn't even want to say hi to her. And then she happened to see him, so he waved.
He's much more spineless in the American version. He's older and more assertive in the Swedish one, and I think that version has it way over this guy in this movie. He was a bitch in this one.
Something bad needed to happen to him for sure. He got to run off with a hot Swedish girl. Zero consequences. Zero consequences.
Well, I'll add, touching on what we talked about earlier, how they just get together really fast. We don't see the immediate days after they start getting hot and heavy. That felt like such whiplash. I actually rewound to make sure I hadn't missed a scene or that the DVD was skipping. Because it goes right from them in their initial courtship, hanging out at night at a cafe together. Then it goes right to a flash forward where Anita wants to leave town, wants to break it off with Holger. She feels so bad about it. When she talks to the missus about not being there to teach the little girl anymore. Is it just me, or did the mom have an inkling what was going on already?
I think Holger mentioned that she already knew, even if she didn't say it. I got the impression, without him saying that she knew.
Yeah, so it just smashes straight to that part of the story. It's like, whoa, hold up here. There's a whole chunk of time missing from this. What's going on? It's like there's a whole reel missing. So, I was wrong in thinking the shorter American version was a better choice than the original Swedish Intermezzo.
Honestly, I was a little upset because the American version was free with ads, whereas the original was free without ads.
Doesn't it just go to show how little they seem to hold foreign material?
Yeah.
Old foreign material.
It's disrespectful.
Since we're already doing black and white movies that have a stigma attached to them, I didn't feel I could ask that as well of the audience to also have to read subtitles.
Just learn Swedish instead.
Just to convince you and everybody else that, in a way, it was such a folly of mine to do the American version instead. So the Swedish one, 20 minutes longer than the American version. They use those extra minutes very well. Holger, older, Anita, younger, provides a greater contrast. And they mention it throughout the narrative, so that's nice. They come off as more passionate. Bergman, much more vivacious in the original. And the biggest positive over the Hollywood cut, there's a nice pinch of Nordic angst. Do you remember taking art history classes when they got to the Northern European art?
Vaguely.
And how Northern European art, I think during the Renaissance, was very depressing portrayals of Christ?
Yeah, I do remember that.
They have that aspect to them, and it comes off in the original version. Holger especially shows an appropriate level of humility in the finale compared to the remake. Like I said, that speech the American version Holger makes to his son about learning to forgive. Something like, "Someday, son, you'll grow up and see what I did wasn't worth your hate." In the Swedish cut, Holger doesn't frame his indiscretion that way. Instead, he points out that the family may not need him anymore, but he understands now that he needs them. Not quite as penitent as I want, but for the 30s, that's probably the closest a cheating bastard on a film is going to come to falling on his sword.
Yeah, I think so. I completely forgot about that speech he gave his son at the end. Just, "I hate you, Dad." And he's just like, "When you grow up, you're going to fuck up too. Whatever."
I hate him. I hate the father in that scene. Let us move on to an honorable mention. 1946's Notorious, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, starring Bergman alongside Cary Grant. John, what's the movie about?
It's about the daughter of a convicted Nazi spy who's asked by an American agent to gather information on a ring of Nazi scientists in South America, which is pretty common. And she must embed herself in with these Nazis who've fled to Brazil and their mother.
What do you think stands out so much about Bergman's character / her acting in Notorious?
A little more anger to her, I think, in this than her other movies. Especially start to film. She's just upset with everybody.
And she also has a wonderful range of strength and vulnerability, definitely punctuated by anger. Anger at what her father did, being a traitor. I guess anger at Cary Grant not immediately loving her up like she wants him to.
Mm-hmm.
We're meeting him tomorrow. The rest is up to you. You've got to work on him and land him.
Marta Hari. She makes love for the papers.
There are no papers. You land him. Find out what's going on inside his house, what the group around him is up to, and report to us.
I suppose you knew about this pretty little job of mine all the time.
No. I only just found out about it.
Did you say anything? I mean that maybe I wasn't the girl for such shenanigans.
I figured that was up to you, if you'd care to back out.
I suppose you told them Alicia Huberman will have this Sebastian eating out of her hand in a couple of weeks. She's good at that, always was.
I didn't say anything.
Not a word for that little lovesick lady you left an hour ago.
I told you that's the assignment.
Well, now, don't get sore there. I'm only fishing for a little bird call from my dream man. One little remark such as, "How dare you gentlemen suggest that Alicia Huberman, the new Miss Huberman, be submitted to so ugly a fate?"
That's not funny.
Do you want me to take the job?
You're answering for yourself.
I am asking you.
It's up to you.
Not a peep. Oh, darling, what you didn't tell them, tell me. That you believe I'm nice and that I love you and I'll never change back.
I'm waiting for your answer.
What a little pal you are. Never believing me, Not a word of faith, just down the drain with Alicia. That's where she belongs.
And I like that there's enough character for her to play that you could delete the overarching romance with Cary Grant, and I'd still want to watch her complete the mission.
Nazis gotta get what's coming to them.
Man, you and the Nazis. It always comes back to that. What if I took out the Nazis?
I don't feel like there's much of a movie without Nazis.
What if they were Hare Krishnas? Militant Hare Krishnas that needed to be stopped.
Oh, man. They're going around getting angry at ham sandwiches. And
You'd watch that. You know you would.
I would. Yeah, I would.
I think it's the type of movie Hollywood wants to make today, showcasing capable female characters. but I don't see the care put into adding layers to a heroine the same way it was Notorious, which is insane to say about a 60-year-old picture.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think are the film's biggest strengths besides Bergman?
I did like Cary Grant in this. I'm not a huge Cary Grant stan, but he is pretty good all the time. I will forever love Claude Rains and everything he did. I think the way all the elements come together, from the actors who are outside of their typical typecast almost, it all came together so it didn't feel like it was any one person's specific movie.
Well, outside of Ingrid, right?
Yeah. Being, her spotlight movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the spotlight's on her, and then a little tiny shaft of light gets shared between all the other characters.
Yes.
I think the suspense is timeless, and I like how the tension is never at the expense of character. Bergman is always present, always important. She doesn't get drowned out by the twists in the plot or the spy stuff. Do you think it's one of the better Hitchcock films?
I do, yes. I won't say best. It's definitely not his most famous. I think people forget about this one. But I'm putting it towards the top.
How many of his have you seen?
Obviously Psycho, Rear Window, almost said High Anxiety.
It's adjacent.
It's a making fun of Vertigo.
Did you see Vertigo?
I did see Vertigo. When you first moved to San Francisco, there's a whole list of movies you have to see. It's like Bullet, Vertigo, that Earthquake Rock movie. You gotta watch all the Dirty Harry movies.
I'm generally apathetic toward his movies. Like, I wasn't into Psycho. I actually thought it was boring. But this, Notorious, it's definitely my favorite of his.
Alright.
Followed by Torn Curtain, starring Paul Newman. Have you seen that?
No, I've not seen that.
That is a Cold War espionage movie. A little bit of it reminds me of Inglourious Bastards. You might want to check it out. I think you would enjoy it. Getting into a general discussion for a moment about old black and white movies, what stereotypes about old movies do you think are undeserved?
A lot of people just want to immediately say they're boring and shrug them off. I think that they look at modern movies and look at the things that are in them, like good acting or good story or good directing, and they automatically assume none of that is in an old movie.
It's almost like modern audiences have been trained to look at the gloss, the sheen of modern filmmaking that I think they use to hide deficits in the story, the acting. But in these old movies, it's all analog, baby. All they have is the acting, for the most part.
It's all they got.
Yeah, you're not gonna get a super complex choreography fight scene. You're not gonna hear an obscenity-laden tirade. Like we said in Intermezzo, you're not even gonna see two people kiss that are having an affair. I'm not saying all old movies are entertaining, but when they're good, it comes from the writing. And yeah, it's a different paradigm of storytelling, and worth checking out if you're desensitized to present-day cinema.
Yeah.
50s, 40s, or 30s and farther back, which era would you recommend the most?
I'm going to say 30s, just for the Universal monsters. Watching, I think that's when Dracula and Frankenstein and the Wolfman came out. Watching those with my dad was my first real old movie experience as a kid, and I love those movies. So I'm saying 30s.
I saw Frankenstein, I think I saw it in maybe elementary school or middle school. I remember thinking it was a pretty good movie. They're very atmospheric. Well, it's funny that you would say 30s. I kind of agree. A big draw of really old movies for me is the historical aspect, looking back in time. I especially love propaganda flicks.
Oh.
I recently saw the Nazi Germany version of Titanic.
Wow, what? I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, it was either produced by or approved by Goebbels. It's actually pretty good on its own, but if you look between the lines, it's not super overt, but you can definitely tell where the politics comes into play.
If Goebbels is involved, that's immediately like, no, burn it to the ground.
I want to say 30s and older, but the problem is finding copies that have passable film and sound quality.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if Criterion isn't saving it, you're not going to find it.
Maybe you are watching the best version of a movie made in 1935, but back then, there were focus issues, sound recording limitations, film flicker. There's no getting around it that those technical deficiencies hamper the viewing. Funny you mentioned Criterion. I got John Ford's Stagecoach from 1939 on Blu-ray over the holidays. It's a Criterion release, so I bet it looks about as good as it can, and I would still say it's not quite at a level where the restoration exceeds basic viewing standards in every scene. Some of it looks a little muddy.
Oh, no.
But what do you think is the key to enjoying older films?
Open mind, I guess. Is that too cliche? I wouldn't say patience. These movies just move.
Some of them do.
Yeah.
We happened to pick a couple tonight that move pretty fast. We could come up with some examples that move at a snail's pace. I think people need to do their research. The internet makes it easier than ever to read synopses and find out who's starring in what flicks may be bigger risks to your personal taste. There are plenty of old movies to enjoy without that caveat of you have to manage your expectations. A lot of movies came out before Technicolor. You'll find stuff that meets your standards. It's just a matter of expending some energy, like listening to the Screen Companion, and following some recommendations.
From the Screen Companion.
Moving on to our final film, The Bells of St. Mary's. Father O'Malley arrives at St. Mary's, an elementary middle school run by nuns, to the consternation of Sister Superior Benedict. The school is in danger of being torn down, and the nuns pray constantly for land developer Mr. Bogardus to donate the next door modern building instead of taking St. Mary's from them. It's up to Father O'Malley to make a recommendation on what to do with the school, and for Sister Benedict to teach him a thing or two about keeping hope alive. John, what do you think of Bergman as Top Nun?
She had this almost sinister quality to her that she presented with such sweetness.
I would say bitchy.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go there, but yeah.
Do you see a difference compared to her acting in Intermezzo that was only 6 years earlier?
I do. I think... No, maybe I don't. Maybe I'm just seeing the difference in the characters.
Did you get a bigger boner?
Yeah, I'm so proud of that joke. And yes, the penguin outfit was really working for me.
It's hard to say if it's coming from Bergman or mainly a difference in the screenplays, but Sister Benedict does a lot more with reactions and playing the silences. Definitely a script thing is that she gets to act more than Intermezzo. She gets angry, melancholy, joyful, playful. Closer to Notorious as far as being well-rounded.
Mm-hmm.
And that only came out the following year, so she was on a roll. What feels especially 40s about this movie?
The way they treat children. A lot of these kids, it felt like, oh, you gotta do good in this class. You could go work that factory when you're older. Well, not you girls, but you know.
What was that show that took place at a high school in Boston? Was it Boston Public?
Yes.
Do you remember that show?
I think so.
But where I'm going with that is all the kids, even the problem children, they're portrayed like, oh shucks, Ultimately, these kids, they're so good inside. I want to see them having to deal with a real problem child. Maybe even the titular problem child, the redhead kid.
Oh, make him the teacher. Make him he's adult man now, right?
Where's the scene where Sister Benedict has to smack some kid's fingertips with a ruler?
She never brought up the abuse. She was more than willing to flunk a child, no matter what the cost.
I knew a character once, a fellow named Elmer Hathaway. I think he was 3 years in the 8th grade. The teacher often wondered how he found his way to the schoolhouse. Sometimes he didn't. Kids used to make fun of him. Well, he got to be about a foot taller than anybody else in the class, and they felt sorry for him, so they decided to pass him. Besides, I think they needed the desk at the time. You've heard of the Hathaway shipyards, haven't you?
Yes.
That's Elmer. And to this day, he takes care of his less fortunate pals. You know, the ones that used to get 99 and 100. Any of them are broke or out of a job, they can always work for Hathaway. By the way, just what is passing, anyhow?
75, you know.
Yes, I know that, but who started it?
Our school is based on it. Every school is if we don't have standards.
Yeah?
But certainly you're not serious.
I am. Aren't we here to give the children a helping hand, or are we here to measure their brains with a yardstick? Why do they have to have 75 to pass?
You would put the standard at 65, Father?
Why not?
Then why not at 55? Why any grades at all? Why don't we close the school and let them run wild?
Maybe.
Anybody wanting to be a teacher would have loved to teach at that school. It looks so easy.
As soon as she walked in, all the kids calmed down. She walked in, she started class, and then Father O'Malley came in. 2 kids read their book reports, and then class ended.
I wish class was really like that.
Exactly.
And Father O'Malley, his first act at the school, doesn't he give the kids a holiday?
It's like, hey, oh yeah, take the day off.
Yeah, that's what principals do. That's what school's really like.
Immediately, Sister Superior's like, they're gonna go do some horrible shit. What are you doing?
And they do. They end up breaking a window, don't they?
They go mess up a Gardas' building.
Were there any aspects of the filmmaking in this movie that stood out to you?
Not compared to the other two. It was still the same crossfades and the long shots looking like paintings. And with the HD TV, you could tell the building at the end of the street was just the painted wall in the back lot.
They did have one white transition. It's like I was watching Star Wars.
Wow!
So this movie taking place at a religious school, do you see any kind of statement being made about religion?
No.
Yeah, neither do I, and I appreciate that.
They all treated it as a matter of fact. But yeah, God's up there, whatever.
What's your favorite non-Bergman performance?
I absolutely have to give it to the small children trying to put on the Birth of Christ play.
Do you think they actually tried to give them any line readings?
No. It definitely felt like they just did a quick rehearsal, like, we gotta get these kids out of here. Not for child labor reasons, but because they just wanted to get drunk.
Which is funny because in the scene, Sister Benedict tells Father O'Malley that she's letting the kids just do what they want. There is no real script.
It's like, whose line? They're ad-libbing.
Just like Intermezzo, I think the girl playing the student Patsy put in some good work. When she fails her final and isn't going to do the graduation walk, I sympathized as she considered giving up her dress to another girl. And how about that elevator ride with her estranged papa?
Oh, that was... We as the audience were the only ones who knew what that meant, but it was still played very well. She didn't know what strange man that was, and he's offered her gum, I want to say.
Yeah, that's another moment that's off-putting in a modern sense.
Right? Yeah, you don't know what's going to happen. It's like, is he going to... something weird? She's wearing that dress.
Do you think it would have made it better if later on, when she is properly introduced to him, I didn't feel like he recognized her from the elevator. Do you think he did?
I feel like he should have, but no, they didn't give any indication that he did recognize her. There's just something wrong with his brain, because he didn't remember their song with his wife.
Yeah, that whole relationship between Patsy's parents, the mother explains part of it, but I don't really get what ultimately separated them, why Patsy's mom was a single parent, possibly a prostitute.
I don't know what 40s prostitutes are supposed to look like.
But what do you think? Why did they break up?
I don't know. Maybe he ran off with
with the piano
teacher.
Your favorite scene?
When he's trying to convince Bogardus that the sisters are going to sell the school to him, and then they come in thinking that Bogardus is going to give the new building to them. That whole concept of nobody knows what's going on. Sister Superior is acting like Bogardus is going to burn in hell if he doesn't answer right.
Yeah. She's got an edge to her.
Mm-hmm. Threatening him with eternal damnation.
She brought a little bit of her Notorious character into the role. That scene at the playground with Eddie, the boy's sister Benedict taught to box to help him deal with a bully. I chuckled when Eddie lets himself get tripped by the bully, manipulating circumstances to get into a fight, and Eddie smiling and literally shaking with anticipation on the ground, making eye contact with Benedict as she watches from a classroom window.
He keeps giving her the thumbs up every time he does something right. The whole playground isn't going to notice.
I would hate it if he grew up to be a real prize fighter and then somebody asked him to take a dive. He wouldn't be able to cover that up at all.
No! He'd be laying on the ground wide awake giving a thumbs up to his bookie.
He was basically snickering like that dog from the Duck Hunt game.
Yeah! He's like, I got this.
That's one of a few examples where the faculty at the school, they don't come off as good educators.
No.
Helping a kid defend himself is one thing. That is a sweet scene where she's wearing the nun outfit and she's showing him some moves. I got real 80s teen movie vibes from that. Like she was the Mr. Miyagi.
She was going to have him go clean some windows and all of a sudden he could dodge every punch of her.
I could see that being a scene in Sister Act.
Wasn't it?
I don't know. I haven't seen that movie in forever.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in forever either. Pretty sure there's mob torture in there somewhere.
But she doesn't do anything to stop the actual fight or break the kids apart. She lets her pupil beat up his bully.
It's a moral victory for her, I think, but it's prison rules. If the inmates are fighting each other, the guards need less control.
Yeah, and I don't want to think of a religious children's school to be in the same class as Shawshank.
There's going to be that one wise kid. I don't think there are any black people in this movie either. Thanks, 40s.
Then this leads seamlessly into what's one of your biggest criticisms?
I think we talked earlier about how these movies just flow better. I felt like this could have been a little shorter.
It is over 2 hours long.
No offense to Bing Crosby, but every 20 minutes or so, the movie stopped so Bing could sing, because that's his background. All right, we got to let Mr. Crosby sing, and it's like, oh, okay. It's a Christmas song, or it's a religious song, or I don't know what this has to do with the plot.
I agree with you there. I would also say that I didn't like the setup very much. For instance, when we're introduced to the nuns, they're laughing at Father O'Malley as he's trying to introduce himself to them during a meeting.
Because the cat is putting its hat on or something, right?
Yeah, the cat's putting on O'Malley's hat in the background. That made me turn on the nuns immediately, like, what a bunch of nun bitches. And the fact that Benedict, she's the lead nun, she sees it going on, she knows why they're laughing at him, and again, does nothing to stop it out of compassion, professionalism, or piety as a member of the church.
Nope.
And on the flip side, I never really liked Father O'Malley. I don't completely subscribe to his worldview or Sister Benedict's, and they're the central conflict in the movie, so I feel like I should root for one of them.
Father O'Malley, we discussed it earlier, like the first thing he does is give all the kids the day off. Does he have that power? What capacity is he to the school other than leading sermon on Sundays?
Well, besides replacing the other pastor that was there, I think he was also told specifically to suss out the situation, whether to sell the school and move the kids to another parish, or try to save it in some fashion. But I got the sense that Sister Benedict held more sway than he did.
Yeah, she definitely had more power, it felt like.
Even though I guess he ultimately was higher up in the chain because he was able to get her reassigned.
She's just a sister, and then there's Mother Superior? I don't remember the character's name. I don't know the title. He's the father, and then there's a mother, and everyone else is like, what, brother and sister? Yeah.
I don't know. I can't speak on it at all. I'm a fool.
Stepbrothers and sisters, I don't know. Are they getting stuck in washers and weird stuff going on?
I don't want to get myself in trouble with my religious family members. But can you think of other examples of bad teaching at St. Mary's?
A lot of the science. I'll bet that science class is... No specific examples in the movie. Thinking in my head, that science class has got to be awful. Trying to learn about the planets and then saying God created everything, and you just taught him about the planets.
And at that time, in the 40s, from what we saw in the movie, they probably have a whole class on how black people are figments of our imagination.
No, yeah. Now, someone might have mentioned slavery, but that's not real, because black people aren't real.
I'm going to include O'Malley as part of the faculty. When he tries to get Patsy passed in Benedict's class, and he literally says, she spelled her name correctly, she wrote the right date, can't we give her a few extra points for that? And I was thinking, what? Isn't this 1946, not 2026? Let's not give out any participation medals here.
No participation medals. Also, I think when I went to high school, 65 was the passing grade, not 75.
Yeah. Oh, think about all the kids in your school that wouldn't have made it if it had been 75.
Looking at my high school education now, I'm not sure how much of it I even use anyway, so I don't see the point of just not letting them through.
Do you believe The Bells of St. Mary's could be considered a musical?
I would say no, just because I think when we did our musical episodes, this would not stand up compared to the rest of them.
Because your wife was on that episode with you. I don't think if I sold it to her as, hey, check out this musical, I don't think she would have been happy with it.
No, absolutely not.
It does strike me as odd that I see some of these descriptions of the movie that call it a musical, because, one, for the most part, except for like one scene with the nuns, I think Bing Crosby's the only one that sings.
It's just Bing, and given his background, it's just one of those things. I think there's some awful movie from the 70s where it's supposed to highlight a Olympic gold medalist gymnastics individual. I forget the term for that type of athlete. Gymnast. And
You got there, buddy. You got there. Sister Benedict would be proud.
Thank you, Sister Benedict. Thank you. There's a terrible movie in the 70s where a gold medal gymnast is supposed to be a spy, and every time he goes to fight, there happens to be like a pommel horse nearby that he could just spin kick people from.
Okay, where does this play into the discussion again?
I forget where I was going with it. Oh, it's the Bing Crosby. It's the same thing of like, all right, this is what he is in real life, so we got to showcase it somehow. This is his pommel horse. Someone's always at a piano, and when he happens to walk in, and that's how he makes his entrance, is to sing.
And then, I believe every moment of singing is diegetic. I think that also separates it from what would be a musical, because they're always playing the piano or something when he's singing. It's never fantastical the way the singing and music is portrayed.
Yeah.
Moving on to one of my favorite segments, TLDL, Too Long Didn't Listen. Which movie is going to play better in 2024?
Notorious.
Okay, strike that. Since that was an honorable mention, let's just keep it to Intermezzo and St. Mary's.
Ah, touche, sir, touche. Let's go with The Bells of St. Mary's.
Which movie is a better black and white film?
I'm going to say Intermezzo.
Are the music sequences better in one versus the other?
Intermezzo has beautiful music, whereas Bells of St. Mary's is just Bing singing. No offense, Bing.
Yeah, it's the Bing Variety Hour.
Give me that piano and violin.
I feel like if they had Dean Martin starring in the movie, he would have done the exact same thing.
Oh, yeah. With a whiskey in hand.
With Jerry Lewis pretending to be a nun.
Oh, we just wrote the greatest movie ever.
Oi, Maven!
Oi, Maven! The Lord say, oi!
The Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost.
Right, Maven!
Which movie do you think had the better supporting cast? Holger's family and professional friends, or the nuns and children at St. Mary's?
I gotta say, Holger's Family and Friends.
It's because of that Ching Chong Chick Chop scene, isn't it?
Yes, that guy. I want to be friends with that guy.
Give that man an Oscar. Bigger plot contrivance. Mr. Bogardus's heel face turn, or Holger's family forgiving him?
Probably Holger's family forgiving him?
Do you think the Bells of St. Mary's is closer to a musical or a Christmas movie?
Musical.
What made less sense? Keeping the Swedish setting in an American remake, or that interminable scene with those first graders showing off their improvised play?
I think keeping the Swedish setting.
What do you think is more controversial? Telling a bunch of nuns to keep praying on the precipice of their school shutting down with no tangible plan of action, or splitting up with someone via a Dear You letter?
Splitting up with someone. The Dear John letter. I see what you did there.
I hope so. Yeah, I gotta put these little traps in to make sure you're paying attention. Do you have any final words about any of these movies, Ingrid Bergman, or old black and white movies?
I love old black and white movies. There's a good romance to them. I think more people need to watch them. I remember watching a bunch of old Abbott and Costello movies when color was definitely around and the rave. And every one of them stated at the start that this movie was in glorious black and white. And I think black and white is still glorious.
Won't you ring them bells?
You've reached the end of this episode of The Screen Companion. Thank you for listening.